So it's
Hi there, fans.
greetings,
Another episode of Dirty Sweat.
motorsport lovers and others. Bit exciting today, Gary. Something
Yeah.
different.
Totally different. And we are sitting in probably one of the most amazing settings I've sat in for a long, long time. And,
And we're going to talk to one of the most amazing guys in motorsport in South Africa.
well, let's stop waffling.
Let's just do it.
Let's just introduce Glyn Hall.
The teacher of rocket scientists.
Good recording.
So, Glyn, thank you very much for inviting us into your home. It's kind of special. Great setting, and nice to see you a little bit more relaxed. And you got your passport sorted?
Yeah, I got my passport sorted, that's for sure. Another event in the Dakar.
Why do you need it?
Well, on stage 3, I think it was stage 3, 4 maybe, NASA damaged the gearbox, and then I was sharing a car with our partner Overdrive, and which is not normal for me. I'm always with my team, but we had 10 cars together with Overdrive and Hall Speed this year. So anyway, NASA broke his gearbox, and then by chance, at the end of that section, there was a liaison with free service.
Yeah.
And it was about 70 k's, I think, and we shot down the road, and it was jammed in third gear because the gearbox had entered reverse at 40 k's an hour going forward.
Oops.
So that didn't help matters much. So we were left with one gear. How NASA got out of the dunes in third gear, I don't know. And with relatively small time loss, I think it was.
But he's a dune king, isn't he?
He is the dune king, yeah, there's no question of that. And anyway, so that was 7,300 RPM down the road until eventually on the dry sump system, the crankcase pressure is too high because you're limited on the GPS by the Dakar organisers to 100. In Peru, it was 112 k's an hour, I think, or 118, whatever it is.
110 legal limit. But,
but you
there's a tolerance.
You got a tolerance, but the race crews know exactly where it is. So eventually, after about 50 k's, I said, no, that's enough. We'll just pull the gearbox out on the side of the road, and the truck must come back from the designated service. So we were on the gravel at the side of the road, and Jean-Marc took the car and went to the truck to bring back an emergency toolbox, while I helped the crew and one of others. We got the car jacked up, started to take the sump guard off, and started to take the gearbox there. Anyway, we changed the gearbox, and during that kerfuffle, the car wasn't locked. So later that night in Arequipa, I went to go and get my fleece because it was 2,800 meters in Arequipa, and no bag. Both my passports gone.
But okay, so that's the reason you lost it. But you need the passport because you're going to Switzerland later.
Yeah, tonight I go to Geneva, start the fight again for 2018 and 19 for the restrictor. So this is a very important FIA meeting on Tuesday. But it's so important I fly on Sunday to make sure there's no delay in the flight, because that 4 hours or 4.5 hours meeting is critical, so you can't afford to miss it.
And this is with interested parties and entrants and the FIA and ASO as well?
Well, in theory, the ASO are invited this time. In theory, it's manufacturers who pay the FIA manufacturers' fees, and invited tuners, they call them. I hate that name. But if you apply to go there and they accept you, you can go there. But I mean, normally in that meeting, there's anywhere from 20 to 40 people.
And what are you fighting, not fighting, but you've got a case of a restrictor on your 5-litre V8, and there's a new engine rule coming in, new discussions about rules to help us understand that?
Yeah, so currently we have always the debate for the last 5 years between the engine balance of performance between a turbo diesel and a petrol normally aspirated engine.
Which sounds the best in the world ever.
Even the, I'm not sure how high he is in the PSA group, but I think he's 2IC to Travaris, said that, wow, our car just sounds fantastic. So yeah, we've been on this debate for 4 or 5 years, and we've obviously taken advice and knowledge from as many institutes and people as we can, and it boils down to the fact that the restrictive petrol and diesel should be the same. The petrol engine under the rules should be a well, and the diesel, a series production engine.
Yours is.
Ours is, absolutely.
And it's even more than just a series production. From what I understand, it comes in a crate from Lexus.
Yeah, well, we don't even take the pistons, heads off, nothing.
You put it standard motor and bolt all the bits and pieces and some of the tricky electronics.
The quality these days, the tolerances in the production engine, especially with this, it's actually made by Toyota but marketed as a Lexus engine. It's got Toyota on the block.
And you've tried fiddling and tuning and modifying and all the rest of it, and you go back to standard.
Well, yes, but you can't deviate from the production manual, the build in the manual. You know, there's tolerances on the valve seats which we have tried once, but actually as the engine comes out of the box, that is the best way. And the big trick, of course, is to tune the exhaust, the inlet manifold, which is free, and the electronics.
But to go back to Paris,
yes.
and the meeting there.
So the big difference between the two sets of rules...
Geneva,
yeah. The big difference which we've been fighting for is that the petrol engine, virtually, you're very limited with the exhaust manifold and the inlet manifold, whereas the diesel engine is given free boost and free choice of turbo, and almost free intercooler size as long as it comes from an automobile. And
any automobile, made by anybody.
And okay. I've been fighting that, and now there's some very intricate data loggers that have been placed in the cars over the last 3 years by the FIA, which measure acceleration and a very high frequency GPS location. And for the past 2 years, it's shown that the diesel Mini, because that's the same chassis. I'm only caring about the engine. The chassis rules are the same for us. Our engineers and our drivers take care of the chassis, but the engine is my responsibility to get the rules balanced. And the conclusion in the last 3 studies is that the performance with the 38, same size restrictor as the Mini has, 38mm.
Because the Mini runs a straight 6 3-litre
diesel turbo, yeah.
BMW
engine. It's the same, so that when we come back to do the FIA Championship and we're back on 36, you can imagine the frustration. Yeah. So this year, hopefully, when I look at the detail that not only myself but my engineers have compiled this week, a massive job, shows us that the performance at sea level, and of course Mini lost Nanny Romer after stage 3, but in the first 3 stages it looked to me, waypoint to waypoint, pretty equal. So hopefully Tuesday should be straightforward. I doubt it will not be.
It's got to be there must be a huge amount of politics, because you've now got the BMW group on the one side, and for sure PSA also wanting, even though they say that this is their last one, they would...
Well, Colin, there's 2 problems to the rules. The problem is that the 2-wheel drive regulations since 15 years ago were sort of developed more for the amateur, and Peugeot came into a hole and did a fantastic job. They took the regulations, they built a car to the limit, and it was clearly a no contest with money, which is not what the principle of cross-country is. Of course, you can never stop people spending money, disproportionately, shall we say, but the rules are meant to be there to protect the manufacturers from themselves. That's
and also,
the
in
principle.
theory, to allow reasonably a gentleman driver to kind of get into the top, near the front-ish, and not be totally embarrassed by the manufacturer.
Sure. Yes, and that you only do that by stability of rules and fair rules. And it was clear from the first year Peugeot made. It's complicated. Cross-country is complicated. Even Stefan Peter Hansel, this last race was so busy. I only saw Stefan to talk to in Salter on stage, I think 12 or something. Yeah. And I only saw Carlos to talk to in the Parc Fermé at the end.
Because they both drove for you.
Yes, yeah. Well, Carlos didn't. Carlos drove for Toyota in the World Rally Car, but Stefan drove for us in 2002, and we've got quite a nice relationship, really. I like Stefan. He's a fantastic sportsman and incredible driver. But going back to that, It was a very complicated race, this, and a very busy race.
Because you had sand and you had altitude, and then there was relatively low sand in the beginning.
Yeah.
And that's all. You won on stage 2?
Stage 3 we won. Stage 3 we won. We won stage 1, but that was, it was a complicated race, of which I was, Stefan discussed. It's not a race that you can just go flat out.
Yeah.
So stage 1 was a strategic way, and the Peugeots went slow on purpose to not open the road on stage 2, where there were no bike tracks. It was obviously a very complicated navigation, and in the end NASA made the decision, let's have 3 minutes in the bag, and we'll take it from there. He's the Dune King, he's the guy, and I mean, he's got incredible confidence in his ability, and Matthew's ability. But what he didn't imagine was that the dreaded detail that bites us all, that no matter how good a car you got, no matter how good a preparation you've got, if you get ill on the race, you're buggered. And
that was when Matthew got seriously car sick.
Matthew got really sick. Something happened to him, and he got sick early in the race there, and they had to stop twice.
We discussed a little bit of that while it was happening, and for a driver, they would normally say to the co-driver, harden up and vomit in the car, you ain't going to stop. And for NASA to stop, he must have been really, really bad. The
problem is that you have to get rid of what it is, and you don't want the vomit in the car for the smell for the drive. And it happens. These are real facts, So, Matthew got ill. Some of it was obviously tension, because the pressure now, the whole world, was on Matthew's shoulders. And we had some special medicine in the car, and unfortunately, in the stress of the situation, Matthew didn't take it. The next day he did, and it fixed him. An incredible little drug we've got which stops nausea, and he didn't take it, but of course that was 14 minutes gone. Yeah. And
your motorsport's full of ifs and buts, but the reality was that
reality
it played out the way that it is. So it's a complicated race, and go back. You're trying to now. In Geneva, you're looking to get some kind of parity of rules to play diesel and petrol together. Well,
let's just finish briefly about the two-wheel drive, or the buggies, as they're fondly known. we prefer
not really buggies, proper two-wheel drive race car.
So the first year, Peugeot made a complete mess of the rules, spent a fortune, and so nothing was changed. But we did see the potential there, and certainly saw. We've been voicing since 2013, when NASA bought an American buggy there, that these rules are really not right. If somebody comes and spends a lot of money, it'll be a no-brainer. And then Carlos sort of proved it with an SMG buggy in 2014, that the balance was not right. And by balance, I mean the rules must be fair enough so that the technical crew and the driver have an equal chance to win. That's all we want. We don't want a technical advantage, but you must have some sort of balance to be able to say, okay, if I've got the best driver and the best crew on the day, that we can win.
It's going to be a reasonable fight, and you don't mind if there's, say, a swing where in some of the desert stuff a two-wheel drive might be quicker, and in some of the tighter stuff for four-wheel drive, or different terrain, it might swing, and you've got swings and balances through an event.
You've hit the nail on the head. That is exactly what we want, and that's what the ASO want. And we went to a lot of trouble with the senior management of the ASO to say, you guys are operating this in a top sporting manner. You must help us resolve this with the FIA.
But it's in their interest as well, because this is the second biggest motorsport event in the world.
Well, they think it's the biggest, of course.
Yeah, I know.
And we'd like to think that too when we do well. But and this year, the ASO were over the moon, because we almost had, a proper race. Even though we were behind, we managed to come back.
You made it a race.
We made it a race.
Sitting here 7 hours and 7,000 kilometers, whatever it was, away, it was the ranges of emotions of following the cars, and there was winning, and then people were giving up and despairing because, you should have built a turbo buggy. What's wrong with you, Glyn?
Sounds easy sitting here.
It's so easy, And then you came. Then Peugeot had a bit of a problem, and then it was
Well,
the fight.
Yeah, you see, you don't have, problems or weaknesses or fractures in the structure only surface when there's pressure. And I wouldn't say we managed to keep that pressure, as much as I'd like to have done, but we made a conscious decision. We ran NASA with no spare parts on the weight limit. We took the chance, and we had quite a frank, open discussion, and I said to NASA, if we're going to have any chance to win this race, you've got to have nothing, not even a tool roll in the car from now on, and let's see what we can do. And he said, yeah, let's go for it, let's do the job.
And then I just wanted to go with your three drivers in the Toyota Gazoo SA cars. It seemed like quite an interesting balance. You've got Janelle, who's done 16 races, once out of the top 10. If you're going to employ anybody to finish on the podium and bring a car, no matter how fragile it is, he's your man. So he's kind of your banker. You set NASA free to go crazy, and then it almost seemed like Bernard either came into himself or was also, go Bernard, take the fight to them.
Well, Bernard was an interesting scenario, and I knew that he had potential. He's an extremely determined guy. He runs a massive business in Holland at the cutting edge of technology. He's a guy that is extremely organized, wants everything laid out so that he can drive. And I like that, and that's why he was part of our team. And but he exceeded my, how can I put it, my
estimation of his quickness.
Yes, yeah, he did. He chose Michel Perron for all the right reasons. It wasn't necessarily the first choice for everybody,
Here comes a 60-year-old guy who's kind of retired and all the rest of it, and is he going to be strong enough? Look, 60's young in my book.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, some of us are getting there, some of us are. But anyway, so he's not maybe the fittest, strongest digger outer of cars.
Yeah, absolutely.
But he didn't really need to dig out that much, did he?
No, they made a conscious decision to I said to Bernard, you will have the same car as NASA and Janelle, and that's the best that we can do. We'll support you any way we can. From my limited experience in Dakar, I will help you where we can.
That's got to be the understatement of the year, hey?
And he listens intently, and he takes it. And if he hasn't taken the information in, I'll go back to him, and I'll just talk to him in a different manner, and he'll say, yeah, okay, maybe we do this. And he did that, and he went extremely well. And Michel did play a big part in, especially one stage, where he said to Bernard, we stop, we deflate the tires. Bernard, these dunes are not feeling safe enough for me. And Bernard said, no, you sure? And Michel said, no, we stop. And he stopped, and he deflated, and that's where, he had such a fantastic result. And
that was because he won one stage, then he had a problem with a sensor, and then the car stopped. I mean, that was not...
Cannot believe it. We had
5 years. This is the first engine that's crazy.
It's crazy. Yeah, we'll see when we get the car back as to what happened. We don't know exactly what happened to the engine, why, so we can't say it was an engine failure, but we've never had a problem before. And the sensor that stopped, you cannot believe it. We must have used 50 of these sensors from a UK company, and Bernard had one in Morocco and one now.
Only on Bernard's car?
Only on Bernard's car. We've never had a minute's trip. And he said, I know what this is. That's how organised he is. He got out, and in 4 minutes he was running again. And we tried to protect against it in the software, but the window of margin was too small, and it didn't recognise it as a failed sensor. So as soon as you unplugged it, it goes onto another system, and the engine ran well.
Okay, that's... So where to now? You of the top 12 cars, 7 were yours.
Yeah, it's quite good, isn't it? Actually.
And 3 different generations.
I think it's a reflection of not me, Colin. It's a reflection of many people within the team. We've got a great team. It's a reflection of vision of also many people, and
the build integrity of the cars as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to go and race in Dakar cost effectively, Hilux is the way to do it. And I think for Toyota's sake, that the QDR, you know, that quality, durability and reliability is ringing through into Dakar, which is exactly what they want.
That's why they go racing, is
why they go
to
racing.
show the attributes of the vehicle. And
I keep getting reminded,
Console
you know, this is not cheap, but it's not cheap to go racing. But Hilux sold 1.1 million vehicles worldwide last year, so it's quite
that's
a
a
lot.
whole bunch of them. And just while we move it, the Daruma, we when Michelle invited us to have a look at the shed, as you so understatedly call it, we saw the Daruma with one eye, and you've coloured the other eye. And
Yeah, the Daruma Challenge is a Japanese philosophy of it's kind of a management top-down approach that you know, when there's a big challenge, something to do, you've got to accept the Daruma Challenge, and Toyota gave us the challenge to go to the podium again, you know, and it's not easy, you know. I always relate, you can't say you're going to win. Ferrari tried that for 21 years with the biggest budget in F1, so money doesn't necessarily determine that you're going to win. So we accepted the challenge as a team. I coloured
all your guys.
all our guys, you know, it's a team effort, so I asked everybody if they're prepared to do this, and otherwise that doll sits and looks at you with one eye for a whole year.
Reminds you.
Yeah, reminds you that you didn't achieve the challenge presented.
So you met the podium, 2 cars, 7 out of the top 12. It's absolutely.
It is, Colin. You know,
Toyota have got to be really happy with you.
They are, and I mean, on my private WhatsApp group, we had one of the number 2s in the world on my WhatsApp group, and which were quite privileged to have his cell number, and he followed the race, plus Tommy Mackinnon I had on the group, and a number of other people on that group under pseudonyms around the world, and you know, you can swipe across and see who's read it, and when I do a private, you know, inside information, sometimes within hours everybody's read it. It's quite scary, actually. It's quite scary, you know, when the world, you know, Toyota have a funny, you know, not a funny structure, but I mean, it's a massive company. So on the number 2 level in the world, I think there are 6 people, and when the number 2 in the world reads your WhatsApp message at 3 o'clock in the morning,
no pressure,
European time or Japanese time, and within an hour of sending it, it's quite good.
But there's 3 Gazoo, just to put again, and I think that as South Africans, you know, you've been around, you've rallied, you've done stuff, and we don't really appreciate the enormity of Toyota Gazoo SA Racing, where you've got 3 Gazoo operations really, one in World Endurance Championship, one in World Rally Championship, and one in Rally Raid.
Yes.
And the South African operation is Rally Raid.
That's it.
And no pressure again, but you know, what does it need? What is that missing, or that next little bit of magic dust that takes?
You know, if you could predict that we were going to win the Dakar,
you wouldn't go.
It kind of wouldn't be a true sport. So we are operating, I mean, motorsport at F1 level down, if we're going to say in terms of budget sizes, you have to operate your business within the sport, otherwise it has no value media-wise or awareness-wise across the world. You know, if Toyota come and sponsor the whole Formula One show, I don't think anybody would probably watch.
Yeah.
And
it's that rivalry, that hope, that.
Of course it is. Yeah.
Rocket.
So if we said that, you know, we gave it our best shot to win while Peugeot were there, that's kind of the underdogs. So we
Very much the underdogs.
We made a conscious decision last February with marketing that we would bring our 2019 car forward a year. We would plan actually for 2 and 3 years with the new regulations coming in next year, but we would use the foundation of our new car this year and we would first in terms of target, was build the car, evaluate it, but the target was to try and beat Peugeot while they were still there, and we'd throw everything that we could at it as a team, and with limited resources, within reason. It wasn't an open checkbook by any means, and we did this, and I think that we did a pretty fantastic job.
You really did. But just to go to the 2019 car, the mid-mount car, the sort of design philosophy around that, get the weight.
Yeah, I mean, we set ourselves some targets. So when I briefed the team in April, I think it was, as to what we were going to do, and when you've got the concept with the engineering crew or key people inside your head, it's very difficult to get the buy-in from every corner or aspect from the team. So, I said what we wanted to do, and I explained to them that every single item that we do on the car must be the minimum the same as the current car, but everything else must be better that we change. And that's not easy. And so we had the concept of the car, we used the two-wheel drive development exercise as the base, so we already had a lot of knowledge on where we were going. And when we did the two-wheel drive, Toyota were very specific, because we had a development budget to do it, and we weren't sure how easy that two-wheel drive project was to do for a long-term project, and cost turned out to be a major factor for us, because Peugeot, the car is light, but they change an enormous amount of parts every day.
And also they put some parts, to me, seeing that car, for instance, on the bodywork, it looks like absolutely pristine super carbon fiber where that would cost no object, and you might be able to save a little bit of money with just backing that spec. Does that really make that much performance kind of thing? And I suppose if you've got you will always spend.
Well, to make it easier, so how you do it in terms of performance of the car, you divide it up. So if the car costs 100 and 80% of the performance of the car is in the engine, which it isn't, then you spend 80% of your allocated money on the engine. If 10% of the money is in making the bodywork super light, then that's 10% is all you got.
Yeah.
You can't spend money you don't have, and more importantly, remember, money is also resources. The time and money are very similar things. So you can't go investing the way that Peugeot did. They've got a separate Pantechnicon full of bodywork. So if there's a crack on the bodywork, they don't repair it; they just replace it. So they can do that. But that doesn't necessarily win you the race. The technical aspects of the car and the team, that's what win you the race. You've got to have a car capable of being fast enough, then it mustn't break, then it must be
easy to service.
Easy to service, of course, so you can, you're limited on the people, and it must be easy to drive. So all of those...
Predictable to drive as opposed to...
Well, it's easy, predictable, it's very similar thing. And then you can... then you've got the tools for the driver to be able to attack the race. So while we needed to be leading the race exiting Peru, because we knew that at altitude, which was less this year, at very high altitudes, at mid altitudes we were okay. So we needed to lead the race going out of Peru, and with NASA, and Janil's also exceptionally good in the dunes. You mustn't underestimate Janil when he puts his mind to it. He's had some incredible performances and very rarely makes a mistake, that gets stuck for 20 minutes. And we weren't intrinsically involved in the tyre development this year. And we ended up with a challenge that is not, we're not publicising it just before the start of the race, that we didn't really need. We'd gone to so much trouble with so many things, but due to the way that it worked out between Mini and our overdrive team with NASA in Europe doing the tyre testing, and then us right at the end, that something crept into there that we didn't really need right at the last minute. And perhaps if that had been right, it might have been a little different. You can never predict the outcome. I can't
No,
say we would
that's
have
why you've got to go back and give it your best shot, which I assume your planning's already started.
Yeah, it is. Well, it starts tonight when I fly to Geneva.
Well, you know, I would love to sit and pick your brains a lot longer, and there's so many fascinating bits and pieces of you, of the team, of the race, of the challenge. But I think that, you know, we've been really spoilt by you giving us so much time.
Yeah, thank you.
And good luck with the journey in Switzerland and Geneva, and B, with the journey to the top step.
To the next Dakar.
Yeah,
Well, it
Glyn,
was
thanks a lot for inviting us here and chatting to us. It's been epic.
It was a pleasure sharing a few aspects.
Yeah, I
of an
know.
incredibly tough race.
Would love to sit in some other time and a few more snippets, but hey, let's see
Well,
where it goes.
I think for everybody out there, it's a week I've been back, and I was pretty fit when we went, but only a week now do I feel that I'm almost human again. And I saw we had a debrief for the team on Thursday for 4 hours. Everybody had the rest of the week off after still got to pack the cars up, so the rest of the team arrived that Wednesday morning, and it was, you could see the toll, shall we say, of the race. You know,
It was long, it was hard, and one heck of a challenge, and we're so proud that you met it.
yeah, it's good. Thank you.
Thanks, Glyn.
Cheers.
Thanks. That's it, guys. The guy who teaches rocket scientists to be rocket scientists is. Thanks a lot. We'll see you again. Remember, if there are any questions, queries, comments, put them on the line at the bottom. We'll try and get some answers to you, and thanks a lot for joining us. Cheers.